My name is Brother Tami Ndebele, formerly with Advent Awakening Ministries. I'll start with a brief background and introduce myself. About 6 years ago, I was actually led by the Lord to move to South Africa. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, which is where we are now, to actually do my attachment and internship as well when I was still at university. So when I was there, my intention was to only do 1 year in South Africa and move back to Zimbabwe. But I can only understand now why it didn't happen that way, because God, He had other ways for me. Because if I can relate, my spiritual life then was just like a nominal person in the church. I had not understood the truth that everyone has to understand at this time. So fast forward about 2 years ago, I actually got hold of the message on country living, true education, medical missionary work. And I remember reading this statement, which I'll read now. It's from the book Testimonies to the Church, Volume 7, page 62.1. It says, "We have come to a time when every member of the church should take hold of medical missionary work." I remember reading these words, and I thought at the time, I didn't know much about medical missionary work myself, and I thought to myself, how is this going to happen that I'll have to take hold of medical missionary work? But the Lord is very gracious, and we started reading, and I remember reading the book Testimonies to Ministers and Gospel Workers. I read medical ministry, and then I started to realize that not only did we have to move to the country, but we needed to actually do God's work. We needed to do mission. So we felt called to actually do mission. So last year, I got married to my wife, which was last year, July the 6th. After we got married, we actually made our decision that we're going to leave South Africa and actually move to the country. But then, before then, we actually thought we needed to move to the country. But then I realized that from the job that I was doing, it was going to take a lot of time for us to actually raise the funds. And then I thought it was wise for us to start our own business. So last year, which is 2017, January, we actually registered a digital marketing agency. So we're actually going to do conversion rate optimization for those who understand the online business world. So our idea was to actually do that business for a year and then sell it, be able to raise enough funds, and then buy land somewhere in South Africa. But then towards the end of 2017, which is about 4 or 5 months ago, the Lord impressed in our hearts that we needed not only to find a place for ourselves, but we needed to actually start a ministry, or actually go out and work within the church and help local churches to understand the medical missionary work, to understand true education. So that's when we actually started praying about it, and we thought, how are we even going to do this? But then through God's mercy and through God's providence, God led us to actually consider moving to Zimbabwe altogether. So my wife is originally from South Africa. I had been in South Africa for 6 years, and we just didn't understand why we had to move to Zimbabwe. But then we made a decision that we were going to move to Zimbabwe, and God led us to a brother that we had known as well, who happens to be behind the camera, Brother Mandangomo, and he also had a vision for Zimbabwe as well. So we decided we're going to actually move to Zimbabwe and actually try and work with local churches, especially in the villages. So before then, we had actually gotten hold of the ministry that Maranatha is doing. So we actually came across their work, and we realized that they were building churches for local churches in the villages, and we realized as well that they were actually drilling wells, which are actually called boreholes down here. So we actually realized there could be something that could be done with that, because already the work that they have done is a great work. It introduces the gospel, the practical gospel, because the local churches get to receive a church, which is one of them that we're actually filming yet as well. And then we're going to be showing the world as well, and just to explain how that helps the local communities. So our objective is to help local churches with medical missionary work. We actually want to make the gospel as practical as possible, because as you read in the book Medical Ministry, Sister White says that the greatest evil that has happened to the truth is the separation of the gospel and the medical missionary work. So we need to use the right arm of the gospel. So our intention, our objective is to actually help local churches to understand the gospel, medical missionary work, to understand the work that Christ speaks of in Matthew chapter 25 from verse 36, the work that Christ speaks of in Isaiah chapter 58, even in Isaiah chapter 1, the work of actually showing that practical gospel that Christ used. So we're going to be explaining in detail the work that we actually want to do as we actually record further as well. Thank you.